Welcome, Free From an Allergy community, to day 2 of the Christmas virtual show. Thank you so much for attending. And if you didn't attend yesterday, my name is Lauren and I'll be your MC for today's presentations. Yesterday, we had an amazing lineup with various speakers and specialists in order to help you prepare for an allergy-friendly Christmas. Now, today, our speakers are just as amazing. We have 3 super exciting lineups for you today. At first will be Nadia, followed by Courtney, and then we'll also have Claire. Claire will be second and Courtney will be last. So if you haven't already, make sure you continue to watch because you will be going in the draw to win one of 4 allergy-friendly Christmas hampers worth up to $100, thanks to our friends at Coles and Table of Plenty. So to kick off today's session, we have Nadia Felsch. She's a nutritionist and intuitive eating counsellor. She helps folks who aren't happy with their relationship with food and their body, ditching dieting for good so they can get on with living a joyous, satisfying and impactful life. If you have any questions, make sure you ask in the little chat box below. And at the end of the session, if we have time, we'll make sure we ask Nadia about them. So I'm so excited to welcome Nadia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So I just want to acknowledge that I'm on Camaragal land. I'd like to acknowledge the past and present custodians, traditional custodians, pay our respect, and also welcome you. Thank you for having me, Lauren. Thank you for having me, Free From Allergy community. Today I want to talk about, and I really want to be clear, the verb is kickstarting. So we're not trying to just magically transform, that does not exist, but your relationship to food. And what does that even mean? What is a healthy relationship to food? So a little bit first, I am Nadia, as Lauren very kindly introduced. My pronouns are she and her. I am a non-diet nutritionist and an intuitive eating counsellor. I work from a health at every size approach in my practice. And as Lauren said, I'm all about helping you get on with living a joyous, satisfying, impactful life where you're free from stress about food and your body. I am a very loud advocate of health and happiness across the spectrum of body sizes. I'm very active on social media if you want to come find me, and I co-host a popular podcast called What the Hell Do I Eat? So if you want to post something about this chat that we're having today, this is me on Instagram at Nadia Felsch. Just pretend the C is not there. Look me up, follow me, engage with my content, and I'd love to see what your thoughts are on this presentation. So what you can expect today is an exploration of what a healthy relationship to food and body means. This is something that honestly, until we start talking about it and diving in, people are often unsure what that looks like for them. I want to help you navigate the specific holiday worries you might have. This time of year is really tricky for all of us, but I think especially if you're dealing with a complication of needing to remove certain foods from your diet for health and for wellness, it's like that extra kind of layer of trickiness. I want to give you some practical tools you can implement right away, no matter your position, and give you the opportunity for further support if you feel that you need it. All right, so I want to kind of present what we tend to think of in society as health. I think it's pretty clear that we tend to think the smaller the body, the healthier the body. We tend to think that weight loss will be an increase in health. We tend to be really preoccupied, and we just collectively, all of us, tend to be pretty preoccupied with weight, other people's weight, our weight history, and also the way that we eat. We tend to eat certain types of foods and others in the name of health, and we think that the individual tends to be responsible for their health entirely. So I want to challenge that none of those things are health, but they are the ideas that we tend to hold, and they're really, really tough to move on from. So depending on where you're at, this may be the first time you've come across these ideas. If you're familiar with non-diet and health at every size approaches, it certainly won't be the first time you've heard of it. But I guess what is kind of the result of those beliefs is very often an unhealthy relationship to food in your body. Because if we're walking around thinking that our body size is equal to health and we increase our body size, It stands to reason that we therefore think there's something wrong with our body and we try to interfere, we try to manipulate it. Often with food, we tend to think really binary in terms. So that's very black and white thinking. And I'm going to go into a little bit more of that today. I want to kind of present what health could be, just an exploration. These are not definitions, these are simply ideas to put out there. I would say health is multidimensional, it's really unique, it's flexible, and it's about your entire person. It's not just mental health, it's not just physical health, it's not just the food you eat. But I'm a nutritionist, so nutrition is a component, absolutely. But so is a healthy relationship to food and body. So if, for instance, you define a healthy diet as not being able to go on holiday and truly enjoy yourself, if you define a healthy diet as having to cut out certain foods, and I don't mean for allergenic or intolerance reasons, but because of so-called changes to your look, I wouldn't suggest that's a healthy relationship to food. Healthy is not a look and it's not a body type. Disease and dissatisfaction can exist in all types of bodies, from small to big and everything in between. And if we think of health, as just absence of disease, I work with plenty of people with diseases like celiac disease or irritable bowel syndrome. They can still be healthy. The presence of that disease does not, by definition, make you unhealthy, but your version of health and your whole person health is going to be different to somebody else's, and that's fine. I also want to kind of put out there that health is largely determined by factors outside of your individual responsibility. When I work with clients, this is often the hardest and also most liberating thing that they come across and learn, because we've got factors influencing that are so much larger, like our genetics. So, I know you guys can't see me, but I'm a pretty short woman. I didn't ask for that. I'm not complaining, but that's my genetics. And we accept that pretty readily in life, but we don't tend to accept other parts. Last night I had a physio appointment because I tend to have a lot of injuries. A lot of that is genetic in my musculoskeletal system, not necessarily something I have done. Other factors are things like our education, our socioeconomic background, how much access to care we have. Someone with celiac disease who's really struggling to get medical care is not going to be as healthy or as well as someone who has easy care to access. So these are kind of just ideas. Now, a healthy relationship to food specifically, and how good does all that food look, by the way? It's making me hungry thinking about it. I would look to kind of define this healthy relationship as trusting your body. Your body is so clever. And if we think of something again like celiac disease, a lot of the reason people come to a diagnosis is because they trust that something is not feeling right for them. Something is hanging around for so long. And often a celiac diagnosis might take months or years to happen. But the trust that you have in your body, and, I need to wee, I trust that signal. I need to eat, I trust that signal. We have a lot of signals going on all day, every day. So I would suggest that a healthy relationship to food and body is about trusting those in the beginning. And it's about enjoying a variety of foods over a long-term pattern that's accessible to you and convenient to you and that satisfies you. That does integrate your unique needs. So whatever is going on for you, if you're needing to remove certain foods for your diet to feel better, that still is about being accessible, convenient, satisfying you, and having a long-term pattern. Health is not one meal or one day or one month, and our data with nutrition science is long-term patterns. It's years of our lives, but we tend to kind of micro-focus in our society on a meal at a time. I would suggest that flexibility is something we look to cultivate over being really rigid with our diet. And I also really want to kind of just validate that if you're dealing with allergies and intolerances, that can feel so difficult. I don't have that lived experience, but I work with supporting plenty of clients who do. And it can still happen. We can be flexible once we understand what our body runs best on. I also want to really bring your attention here to the positive and inclusive food language that I definitely pioneer and support, but we don't tend to. So, just this week I was talking to a gym in Melbourne about helping them not use really binary terms. Remember, I touched on that, like healthy food or processed food. What does that even mean? And I can tell you what it ends up being to the person who's hearing it, the person joining a gym or the person following a gym or following someone like myself on social media, is it tends to create a concern. I don't eat that food. I don't eat that healthy food. What's processed food? And I also think that food should take its rightful place. Yes, I'm a nutritionist and I care deeply about nutrition science, but food is also just a simple pleasure in life. It doesn't need to take up so much headspace, and it really does, unfortunately, for so many of us. So if we think a little bit more about, I guess, food and how we talk about it, I would suggest that most of us carry a lot of rules around food. This can be coming back to how it makes us feel, absolutely. But in that case, if we're talking about a celiac who needs to stay away from gluten, that's not a rule, that's respecting their body. If someone doesn't need to remove gluten, but thinks they need to, maybe for weight loss, untrue, but maybe they've picked up on that from social media, maybe they think it's so-called toxic, all these kind of unhelpful food languages. These things tend to carry a lot of weight in society. There's a lot of dietary restrictions that are really common without evidence, and the community here that I'm talking to today is very likely not as affected by that. The celiac clients that I have would be desperate to eat some bread, desperate to eat some gluten-containing bread. They're not wanting to cut it out. And potentially for whatever, if you can't eat nuts, I'm sure you're desperate to eat some nuts. So we're not talking about protecting your body with food. We're talking about thinking we need to cut out foods. Again, maybe you think you're not meant to have chocolate, but you can. Why can't you have it? The outcome of a lot of this belief system is we tend to avoid foods or restrict foods only to eat a lot of them when we get to them. And the reason is that we've held them in such high value. They're so exciting. And don't get me wrong, food is exciting and pleasurable and does light up the pleasure center of our brain. But we want to have that kind of in balance. We don't want it to be like off the chain here to the point where you can't even see my hand anymore. And the other thing about rules that I think is important to kind of, I guess, cover here or think about is that rules are external to your body. So if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, but I can't eat this because it's not supportive of my health, it's not great for my digestion, it doesn't make me feel good, then that's not a rule. That's you discovering what suits you and honoring and respecting your body. That's fantastic. But if it's, I'm not meant to, this is bad for me, this is naughty for me, this is going to make me gain weight, those kinds of rules, they're not your internal signals. And I would suggest that it leads to these binary concepts of good and bad. So definitely, this is how a lot of clients arrive to me, thinking that all these delicious foods, and I would suggest everything in front of you is delicious to me, but actually maybe not the salmon. I don't love salmon, but I'm sure some people love salmon. All of these foods are just food. The concept of approaching a healthy relationship to food and considering how you talk about food is, can all of these foods in front of you simply just be food? Can it simply just be blueberries and donuts and oil and cabbage? Can we just name it? Can we just say what the food is? And then can we decide how that food feels for us? And sometimes we don't know. I just told you I'm not a huge fan of salmon. It's not because salmon's bad. Salmon's incredibly nutritious. I just don't like it. That doesn't make it bad, but I love donuts. I mean, maybe not those particular flavors, but that also doesn't make them good. They're still just donuts. So what we want to start to do with food, if you're interested, the fact that you're here tells me you're interested in kickstarting your relationship to food from a healthy perspective, is placing all of these foods on an even level. They're just food. They don't need to have all this great power over us. And what we're able to do in time and with practice is instead look at these types of foods and all of the foods, and instead ask yourself right now, what do I feel like? What do I have access to? What's convenient for me? What's good for my budget? What do my family also like to eat? What's respectful of my body? What will give me energy? What will have me feeling satisfied? Imagine asking yourself all those kinds of questions in a moment. in just one moment. This is not like a 15-minute progress or process, I should say. Instead of labeling them as unhelpful foods, and I also kind of really want to, I guess, stamp out here, the nutritional value of food is there, absolutely. But that doesn't mean some foods have no nutrition. All food has nutrition. Nutrition in its truest form simply means energy. And our body will take energy from everything it can because it's magnificent. And even if we only have access to one type of food, it will do its darndest to get everything it can from that one food. So the binary view of food is largely unhelpful. Now, I want to kind of touch on the holiday significance. I also want to really acknowledge, I know we're in Australia, or I'm speaking to you from Australia, and the predominantly celebrated holiday here is Christmas, but that's not everybody's belief or something that they recognize. So whatever the holidays mean to you, it may mean time off from work. It may mean more socializing. It may mean more talking about food, more pressure about your body and food. So just consider it that way. And the first question I want to ask, what has changed? Why is this time of year, this fractional part of our year, any different to any time? What's the difference in March? I mean, what's the difference in August? In fact, I would suggest what's changed is the noise of what's called diet culture. The idea that we need to pay really close attention to our bodies and our food intake in order to control our weight, in order to be accepted in a certain body size. I would suggest that that gets a lot louder at this time of year. So what we're starting to see in advertising is 4-week challenges starting January 1st. Gyms can't wait to get their fat burning nonsense out into the universe. We've got Weight Watchers going wild with their offerings for the new year. And that largely is what changes. There actually is nothing integral changing. It's just the community and the environment that we live in. And that draws us into the really messed up notion that we need to be very careful. We need to watch everything we eat. It's interesting, there's two things I want to mention here, that when there are intentional attempts, is the best way to put it, intentional attempts to control the way we eat, it doesn't last. So research does not support. So even if I was an advocate of weight loss for health, which I'm not because the data does not show it's helpful, even if that was true, we don't have a way to make it last. So if we say, without an allergy, without an intolerance, I need to watch what I eat. I shouldn't have, I'm not sure if this is chicken or turkey, whatever on earth it is on the table here. I'm not meant to have too many serves of that. Instead of getting to the meal like these people in this stock photo and asking, how much turkey do I feel like? Do I like turkey or chicken or whatever the hell you've got on your dinner plate? The idea of restriction, again, is that it actually drives us to eat more than we need, to often binge, and have this overwhelming sense of guilt. In the last couple of weeks, I've been sent a magazine extract from one of our largest supermarkets here in Australia that has nothing to do with this community. I want to be very clear. It is another provider. They have in their magazine a holiday swap substitution. So instead of mayonnaise, have yogurt. Instead of, I think it was instead of turkey, have prawns or pork or something like that. This is the kind of thing that we're seeing at this time of year. This healthy swap is a way that you could put it. And the supermarket is certainly not the first person to, or the first company to talk about this. The aspect of that is, let's just look at mayonnaise. How much mayonnaise are we even eating? Are we sitting there with a spoon and eating maybe, but I doubt it. And the idea that you can't have the mayonnaise in your coleslaw or your potato salad or whatever you like to have it in, maybe you like it with yogurt, that's fantastic, you do you, but I would suggest you might really want the mayo. And At this time of year, the noise is really loud to take out things from your diet, to give a lot of attention to what you're eating. But again, what's changed? Why this time of year? You can always eat food, always eat foods that you like and that feel good for your body and respectful for your body. You don't ever need to earn it, ever. Earn the food. And you also don't need to burn the food. You don't need to have a big Christmas lunch and go for a walk. These are messages that come from our very weight-centric society. And when it comes to honoring our allergies, our intolerances, even just our preferences, I mentioned I don't really enjoy seafood, or I mentioned salmon, but it actually is all seafood. So me sitting down at Christmas when everyone else is eating seafood, I'm not interested, and that's fine. It doesn't make them better. It doesn't make me worse. It's just my preference, and I always, always know my body has my back. I can trust it. I can trust that what it's interested in on the table, how much it's interested in. I don't need to come into the meal really hungry, because I'd suggest that that will mean you'll tend to eat more than usual. You can just treat it like any other meal, and remembering that although I love food and I love celebrating food with other people, Christmas or a holiday, whatever this time of year means to you, is more than just food. Maybe it's spending time with the people we love, or watching kids open presents, or someone dresses up as Santa, or maybe it's going to the beach and having time off. We place so much pressure on ourselves to eat a certain way. And this time of year, remembering what has changed is a really helpful perspective to take. Now, this is a practical tool. If you want to screenshot it, if you want to kind of jot it down for yourself, I'd really recommend. So this is something I devise to help clients in their own time work through. Is this a food rule? And I've made sure to include food allergies and intolerances in here as well. So if we're getting, look, you can use this at any time of year, but especially at the moment, if you're arriving to a meal or you're choosing what to eat and you're trying to figure out, hey, am I using food rules? That lady on that thing that she was talking about, I'm gonna try that exercise that girl mentioned. So ask yourself, is this choice based on a preference? Is it the type of texture of food, maybe the temperature of food you like? At Christmas in Australia, we love prawns culturally, and they're often not cooked prawns. So is that something that is your kind of thing? Is that something that's making you really happy and excited? And if yes, cool, proceed, not a rule. If your answer is no, I don't really know why I'm eating this yogurt potato salad because I really want the mayonnaise potato salad. Ask yourself, is it managing a food allergy? Is it managing an intolerance that I have, or a health condition that I have and a health professional's told me? If yes, you do you. You want to respect your body. That's the choice. That's not a rule. And if it's no, the tricky end of things, I want you to ask yourself, and I invite you to ask yourself, why are you choosing this? What is it about the food? What is the rule? What is the idea? Is it because it's healthy? Do you think that you're actually wanting something else? So I really encourage you to go through that sequence and apply it. And when you get to the point of what's underneath the choice, consider what's going on. How many times have you heard this about that particular food choice? How much guilt is playing into this for you? Is it factual? Can you check? And do you need extra support around the decision? Because you don't need to know all the answers. If you're not sure why you're worried about the decision, don't Google it. Ask your healthcare provider. Find the right specific support to get a trustworthy answer. Now, I want to kind of touch on towards the end here the reason that for most people this time of year is really tricky is the worry of weight gain. So whatever's going on for you, we tend to think that I'm just going to eat all this food and I can't be trusted. I'm going to gain weight. And that possibly is the worst thing for you to consider. So I absolutely couldn't be more clear that bodies come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. It's normal, it's healthy. We celebrate it in so many parts of the world. For instance, dogs. I'm a huge dog fan. I have 2 mini sausage dogs. And actually, there's a sausage dog in this photo. We celebrate all the beautiful types of dogs. We celebrate different cows. You know, there's something like 200 species of cows. We celebrate different flowers and different trees and different types of milk. Why can't we celebrate this in humans? I'm a short woman. Cool. There's tall women that are fantastic too. One is not better. And so we need to kind of look at where weight sits in our life. What does weight represent for us? I want to kind of let you know from a physiological level, weight naturally fluctuates. So if I give you an example of how this works in the body, over this time of year, if you find yourself in a different routine and a different pattern, so maybe you're going to more social occasions than usual with very safe COVID restrictions in place, I hope, following public health recommendations, you might be eating out of your normal routine. Maybe it's less, maybe it's more, maybe it's different types of foods. Maybe you're not exercising or moving your body in normal ways because you're busier. Maybe your kids are finishing up school if you're a parent. Maybe you're trying to wrap up work for the year like I am and you're stuck to your desk all the time. There may be a change in lifestyle, a change in patterns, and there may be a change in weight. That's really normal. And you know what? You don't need to do anything about it. You don't need to micromanage this. Your body will figure its shit out. Excuse the expression. So if I go on holiday, I might be walking more. I'm a sedentary person in terms of my work. I sit pretty similar to what we're doing now, talking to clients. I do a lot of seated work. And although I'm active from a social perspective and I have hobbies that are sport, I'm not overly active in my work. So if I go away and I'm walking around 10 kilometers a day, 15 kilometers a day, my activity has changed. And so my weight may change. And when I come back to my life, it will change again. Now, these fluctuations are really small and they're normal and they're healthy. And I want to reiterate, they do not require micromanaging. The attempt to shrink or control yourself, which could be called dieting, I just simply define dieting as any attempt to shrink your body, is the greatest predictor we have of future weight gain. This can be a really difficult thing to accept, but that's what our data shows, that the more we play with our weight, the more we try to intervene, the larger our bodies become. And that's actually fine. But just know that it's not, I guess, it's not factual that trying to change it will remain that way. It's not a sustainable aspect. The other thing about weight I think is really important to cover here is that weight is not a behavior. So weight is exactly like height, like shoe size, like the color of my eyes. It is a fact. It is not a measure of success, and it is not something we actually can manipulate the way that we think we can. I can't change my height. I generally cannot change my weight. There is a healthy weight level that we all have that fluctuates and it changes with various age stages, hormonal shifts, stress shifts, holidays, but it also has a weight range that it will come back to. I would suggest that if this is an area that is really, I guess, a struggle for you, and these points that I'm discussing are super challenging, that's okay. I see you. I get that what I'm saying is very upstream. That's the health at every size approach is definitely not mainstream medicine. But your weight focus can be shifted to the side. And especially if you're looking to manage, it might be newer for you, managing your allergy and intolerance. We often can wrap that up in weight. And we often might think we've gained weight or we've lost weight because we're trying to manage our health as best we can. So can we put the focus of weight to the side? You know, if you're imagining your screen in front of you, can it be the background tab instead of the main tab? I'm not asking you to pretend you don't care, but can it just not be the pure focus? And I really need to kind of pull out here, no matter the size of your body currently, that weight concerns are really rooted in the fact that our society and healthcare especially is just full of fat phobia. The idea that bodies can come in different sizes and shapes is not supported in our society, unfortunately. I work really hard to overturn that in my own world, but it's a rough, long road. So when we think of body respect, to kind of bring this all together, I love to think of respect, because regardless of how you feel about yourself, regardless of how you're symptoms of your condition might be playing up, you can always care for your body. There never needs to be an exception. You never need to earn it. And caring for it is not liking it. We all dislike our bodies sometimes. We all have dissatisfaction or annoyance or frustration. Last night at the physio, I was pretty damn frustrated with my injuries, but I still care for my body. I did the thing. I went to my healthcare provider and I followed the instructions. Body respect can also be wearing clothes that fit you. That's respecting your body. It's eating foods that support you as a whole person and your complex needs, not just I'm eating healthy. You have a variety of reasons you eat food, and that's okay. Movement that feels good for your body, the way you speak about yourself and to yourself, the things that we say when no one is listening can be horrific if we take notice of them. And respect is taking notice of that and prioritizing, hey, I'm great. I deserve this respect. I would suggest body respect is also making time for rest and play, not just one or the other all the time. And appreciating the topic I've just covered, which is body diversity. Appreciating that can really help us accept our bodies a lot better. And I would suggest it also includes finding ways to support yourself. That could be healthcare, that could be just self-care. And that's really body respect. And I think overall, these aspects are leading to you discovering your own individual needs. Each celiac has different needs. Each person with a nut allergy has different needs. An intolerance, you can't compare people. We're all entirely different. We all have different budgets for food and access and family needs and work commitments. So to say that there is a diet for everybody is wildly incorrect. So to find the right balance for you is also ensuring that the food decisions you make them for all kinds of reasons. You make them to feel good. You make them to fuel your body, to respect your body. And this is where in the one-on-one work that I do, we get to put into place the nutrition science, which is fascinating and helpful, but with a flexible, varied approach. We're not robots. We don't eat nutrients. We don't need to worry about that. And we can support our own intuition always. I also want to let you know that no matter how this has come across to you today, you may have never heard of these kinds of concepts, and that's fine. I really appreciate you listening, and I also want to let you know that we have a lot of unlearning to do. We have a lot of preconceived and unhelpful ideas about food and health in society, and so it's a process and it's patience. But the best way to do it is to discover your own individual needs and put those above everything else. So I would love to know, and I know Lauren's been keeping an eye on questions. Does anyone have any questions for me? I can have some water now.
You can. Thank you so much, Nadia. There has been a few
So
questions that have
welcome.
come through. We're doing well for time as well.
I'm on the time, guys.
So the first question was, now, I guess when we're born, we're not born with the fear from food. Where do you believe this
True.
comes from? Do you think it's because of this diet culture we seem to be sucked into, or I guess societal pressure that we feel like we have to maintain this perfect body image that does not exist? Where do you think it comes from?
So first of all, whoever, and might have been several people, whoever asked that question, that is a fantastic question. Probably the best question I've ever been asked. Okay, so if anyone is a parent, I just want to kind of go back a little bit, or if there's kids around you, I'm not a parent, but I, take care of kids or I see kids in my family. If you see a baby eat, specifically a baby who's not being spoon fed, so I just want to be really clear, they're feeding themselves. It is joy. It is one of the most fun things to do. I might be a little biased because of my work, but what you're seeing is true trust. No interruption, no nonsense, no concerns about weight. They have no lens of, as you say, diet culture, and I definitely will get into that. We are all absolutely born with the knowledge and the instincts and the trust of what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, when to stop, and it fluctuates. So for anyone who's had a kid or watched a kid grow up, Things like teething mean that their mouth is really uncomfortable and their appetite decreases. This is normal. It's just like us. If we're really stressed out, maybe we don't have a really big appetite, or we're focused on something else, or maybe we have a cold. Fluctuations are really normal. We're not the same person every day. But what we have added as adults, and unfortunately, the average age of dieting is commencement is 8 years old. And so what you've got is a society that interrupts this natural process. And this is no shade to parents or to caregivers. We're all doing the best we can with the information we have at the time. But if I put my own experience in there, I was told I have to eat my veggies before I have dessert. I was told to finish my plate. My mum wasn't trying to do anything wrong. That's just what she knew. She was trying to take care of me. Eat your veggies, Nadia. The thing is that interrupts my natural inclination. Maybe that day I was good for veggies. And so as we age, we also develop, as you said so well, Lauren, this idea of society as one body is beautiful, one body is acceptable. And I want to be really honest, that's where we're at in society. That's not factual. There is not a body that's healthier or more beautiful to me. But that's where we're at. If you go to a healthcare provider in a larger body, you will generally be told to lose weight, even if it's not relevant to your question, even if it's not relevant to what you're asking. We're so fixated on what our bodies look like and somehow confuse that with what we eat and how we feel and what our value is. So most of the time, what we're doing in the work that I do is, I mean, my clients do all the hard work. I simply am the support to get the obstacles out of their way, to let them discover food that works for them, to let them discover they can trust their body. But when they're hungry, they can trust that. That's not an alarm bell that they've been told. And, often I do have clients who have kids in their lives and they see it. They see that it's possible because, look, this kid yesterday was eating all this food and now is pushing it away because they just trust that they're all good. And tomorrow they know there's going to be more food. There's a lot of complexity to what's going on in our world, but generally speaking, I got to be honest as well, my own profession doesn't help. We layer on all these ideas about health to people. Oh, this is good for you and don't eat that and this cures this. And people's heads are just like blown. And we're taught over and over by the world to not trust ourselves. And the reason we buy into it is because we all want to be accepted and normal. And that's completely understandable. We don't want to have a body shape that stands out for the wrong reasons. But imagine if our world just got the heck on and didn't worry so much about what everybody's bodies were. Just a thought.
Just a crazy idea.
Just a crazy idea that we all have better shit to talk about. But anyway.
I find that so interesting because even with my personal experience, I know that I come from an Italian background. So I remember as a kid, you weren't hungry, but I remember both my nonnas literally being like, Lauren, you need to eat. Keep eating, keep eating.
Keep eating, Lauren.
I done that in a
and
monologue
it's from love,
really,
of course, right?
Yeah.
It's from love. They're not trying to do anything wrong. I so get
No.
that. But the idea, see, food is complex. Food is love and celebration and culture and religion and community. It's all kinds of things. But we are always the experts and we are always allowed to be the expert. And we don't, I mean, that's the thing about being an adult is you get to choose. Hopefully Nonna doesn't mind so much.
Perfect. Thank you. I do have a few questions that have just come in now, actually.
Okay.
One of them was, what strategies can you suggest that help with body respect?
So first I would suggest you take a look at your wider influences. So first of all, social media. Who do you follow? Who are you watching? Who are you listening to? Do you just see skinny white girls all the time? I used to. I used to think that was really normal. And if you're a skinny white girl, that's totally fine. But not everybody is a skinny white girl or man. So what are you seeing? Are you seeing actual body diversity? Are you seeing people that sell their body? So for instance, I'm a nutritionist. If I sold my body, which is fairly close to our Eurocentric beauty standards, I'd probably make more money. I'd probably have more clients. I don't think that's ethical. So who are you following? Who are you interacting with from a brand perspective? They could even be a clothing brand, anything. Who are you interacting with and what are they showing you? Are they showing you all kinds of bodies? Because all bodies are normal and good and beautiful. But if we constantly see the one thing, of course we think that's normal because that's all we see. But the other aspect is considering how much of your influence is telling you about changing your body. So do you follow accounts? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you get magazines? I mean, I don't know if anyone buys magazines anymore, but whatever your influences are they trying to tell you how to eat and how to change your body? And you have full autonomy. You do whatever feels right for you. But if you want to move into a place of respect, that's not respect. That's manipulation of your body and its natural needs. And, sometimes it's really difficult because it might be the group you spend time with. Maybe it's people at work that constantly talk about their freaking diets and their bodies. That is not helpful for us as we're going through this experience. For me, being years and years down the road of recovery and now helping other people, and I do call it recovery. Dieting is trauma. Diet culture is traumatic. And you build resilience. So now I can be around it and I don't really care. It doesn't trigger me, but I don't enjoy it. I don't want to hear about people's weight loss journey in my social life. That's so boring. But for a lot of people, it's really triggering because they compare themselves. So take stock is definitely my first advice of all the influences you have. And the other part of this, I would say, is the tools that you're using. Do you weigh yourself? Do you use a step counter or a calorie counter? Do you weigh your food? Do you measure your food? Do you track your food? Why are you doing those things? What level of respect is that giving to you? And using what you're really talking about in this sense is rejecting the societal ideas about health and body and starting to give attention to your actual needs. It builds a lot of momentum when we work out how our body runs best. It's like if you've ever done any kind of sport or exercise, the more you do it, the better you get, the stronger you get. This is the same thing. You're flexing the muscle of body trust. And each time you do it, it gets easier, and it gets easier to drown out the kind of noise. So I hope that helps.
Definitely. And I guess just touching on that as well, if you do find yourself in a situation where it is quite triggering, do you give any advice as to how to maybe avoid or get yourself out of that without, I guess, hurting someone else's feelings or being seen as rude?
Good question. This time of year makes that trickier because we tend to socialize more, right? You have to go where you're comfortable. And this is really unique. So at this time of year, a lot of my client sessions center around boundary conversations because that's what you're asking. How do we have these boundary conversations? First of all, it depends on how you are as a person. If you're a quiet, introverted, shy person, you're not probably going to feel comfortable to just put it out there. And that's okay. You don't need to. I would kind of keep in mind protecting yourself is respect. And that's more important than other people's feelings. 100% is more important than people's feelings or the social dynamic. So I honestly think practice a few things that feel normal for you to say. So for instance, if my mother-in-law, I mean, she's fantastic, this wouldn't happen, so I'll use it as an example. If my mother-in-law is telling me, hey, Nadia, maybe you've had enough pudding. Do you really need to eat that pudding, for instance? I would simply, in my sassy tone, because I'm a pretty direct person, say, actually, I love pudding. I'm all good. Thanks. And I'd be really confident to say that. And I know a lot of people would as well. They can redirect it. You can literally, I've had a client, I've got my phone in front of me, pick up a phone. Oh, I'm just getting a text. I just want to get this. If avoiding it is easier, that's okay. You don't need to have that confrontation. If it's someone you feel pretty close to, you can say, hey, I'm actually working on my food relationship. They probably won't know what you're talking about, but it might shut them up.
Yeah.
You can avoid, you can run, that's totally okay. You can bring it up if you feel safe to, because safety is important. And I think the type of person you do this with matters. So if it's obviously someone close to us, it might be a bit easier. Someone at work, maybe not so much. Maybe you just want to say, you honestly can also say, I don't find this helpful. It's not about them. We're not trying to shame them. We're not trying to judge them. It's their business. It's their journey. But you want to protect yourself. So you don't need to say, oh, you're upsetting me. I guess unless you want to. I would just suggest you say, I don't find that helpful. Can we talk about hockey? I don't know. That was a terrible example, but something.
Hey, if you like hockey, that is fine.
I don't even know anything about hockey. I don't know where I got that from.
That makes two of us. Yeah. Okay. I think that's a really good point, though. Even just change the conversation. Perfect.
We just feel like it's normal to have these conversations, but it's actually super boring. Like, it's super boring talking about people's bodies and their eating habits. It's just really dull. We have so much better stuff to do.
Literally, life is so short. It's like, why should we have to
short.
spend all our time just worrying about what we're going
Totally.
to eat? Yeah.
And
I
guys,
have
we've been
another
living through a
question.
pandemic. So, like, let's enjoy the time together, like, not in a pandemic as much, with as much restriction.
Yeah,
So,
I think the pandemic as well really brought up a lot of stuff because I even knew in my social circle, the conversations a lot of them were having were, I've put on so much weight during this COVID. I've done,
absolutely.
and I was like, don't
It's our
worry.
default. Yeah.
Yeah, I
We're
was
all
like,
just
don't.
surviving this. Aren't we so lucky we have a body that's helping us survive?
Yeah, and I think it's so important what you touched on earlier. We go through different cycles all the time. Our
We
bodies
do. All of
fluctuate.
us. All of us. Men, women, dogs. It's normal.
I've got a few more questions just quickly. One of them's from Corinne. Do you have one thing you do every day to make sure you keep that positive mindset?
Oh, so sweet. I like this question. I have so many things, to be honest. I'm going to say the thing that I have from the day before is that I prioritize my sleep. Sleep to me is really important. Not a very happy or well person without it. And I prioritize going to bed at a time that's good for me.
Perfect. And then I'll do one more question from Jen. Christmas is particularly, if I can move my mouse, notorious time for people having views on other people's bodies. What
Oh,
can
yeah.
we do when other people have views about what we can slash can't, should and shouldn't eat? And I guess you did just cover that before about
Mm, mm.
changing the conversation.
Well, if we think of, I mean, this is a celebrity example, but my husband and I were discussing this morning at breakfast. This year, Adele, the incredible Grammy, 17 Grammys or some
Voice.
wild amount of Grammys that she's won, the singer Adele, I was told, I don't watch the news, but I was told she made headlines for a change in her body size. And this caused a lot of debate and this caused a lot of conversation. Again, about her body size. So, like, just repeat that a few times to yourself. This is a human being who's like in the news headlines for changing their body. Like, that's super weird and not interesting. And also, we have no idea what's going on for her. For all we know, she's unwell. Who knows? Bodies change for all kinds of reasons. And she can do her. There's no issue with Adele, but our obsession with everybody's bodies often is a reflection of how unhappy we are. So, for instance, with my clients, those who have a mum who's really hard on them about their body, or a dad or a sister, it's never about you. It's always about that person. And it's really difficult, but send them love because it's obviously tough for them and they're struggling, but their shit is not our shit. And the best you can do is protect yourself. If again, I've been rehearsing with my clients who are going home to visit family, how they're going to react with mum or mum-in-law. They know it's coming, and you have to go into this knowing this stuff will happen, but it's not our job to change everybody else. It's actually none of our business unless they ask, as in for your opinion. But you can protect yourself. You can practice. I actually have a whole episode of my podcast called Navigating Diet Culture Conversations. I think it's episode 30 or 31. So if you want more, I would definitely probably go listen to that.
Definitely. And I guess if anyone does want to get in touch with you, do a session with you in our exhibitor area on the Free From an Allergy Virtual Show website, Nadia's profile is actually there, so you can click that and then it will then take you to her website, which I'm sure have all your links, because I was going to say, how can we find you?
Yes,
Instagram,
just head on over there. Yeah.
podcast,
Exhibitor
every.
area is fine, or all the things. Thank you for having me. I hope
Thank you
everyone's
so much,
enjoyed.
Nadia. I think this was a very valuable session today, considering the time coming up, and it's such a touchy conversation, but you've definitely made, for me personally, a safe space to have this conversation. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Take care. Happy Christmas or holidays, everybody.
Yes, happy Christmas.